I hate the word hot seat. I hate the term. I hate the idea that there are coaches on it. I hate that basically anybody we don't like is viewed as being on the hot seat. With that being said, let's talk about who's on the hot seat in the ACC. I think there are 5 coaches who are even relatively warm. And I don't, as I mentioned in the SEC episode, I don't know that I can decipher the difference between a warm seat and a hot seat, or a hot seat and a scalding seat, or, you know, whose seat is simmering. I don't get it. I can't get into that. I don't know. And I don't like to talk about what I don't know about, regardless of what you might say in the comments. But I think there are 5 coaches in the ACC. I think 2 of them, you could argue, the seats are really hot, and the other 3 are some level of warm to hot. And I think you have to start with Bill Belichick in North Carolina. I think that Bill Belichick's seat at North Carolina was always going to start at least at minimum. They were going to get off the foot right from the jump at warm, that his seat was going to be warm, because it feels like an incorrect fit from the get-go. You bring in this lifelong NFL coach who is in his 70s, who's been passed over for NFL jobs, to be your coach as a college team, with the idea that he's going to turn your program into the 33rd NFL team. It feels weird, wrong, incorrect from the get-go. Then you throw in the whole, he's dating a 24-year-old, all of the antics that came with that, that have come with that. It doesn't feel like a match made in heaven. And I believe that it gets to be increasingly likely that North Carolina cuts bait maybe a little bit faster with Bill Belichick than it would have with virtually any other candidate. That if things don't go well in year number 1, I wouldn't be shocked if there was a conversation between he and Jordan Hudson and North Carolina's brass about, like, hey, you know, this experiment maybe didn't work. I'm good with it being done if you are. Yeah, okay, that's cool. I don't see that being a long-term solution. I'm on the record as thinking I don't think this is going to work out for North Carolina. I think they're going to look back on this someday and go like, yeah, what the hell were we thinking there? So I think Bill Belichick started with a warm seat in North Carolina. And before he's even coached a game, I think it's fair to question what the temperature of that seat feels like and looks like already. The one thing that can lower it is the team's performance on the field. They get off to a really good start, it can go from warm to cool real quick. I personally just don't foresee that happening. I don't know what Mike Norvell's seat feels like at Florida State. I just know that coming off a 2-10 record last year doesn't leave basically anybody in America a whole ton of wiggle room. You don't get a lot of runway to make more mistakes when you went 2-10 last year and you started the year in the AP top 10. You don't get a lot of grace for your next season. And I think Mike Norvell's got just a little bit of what I like to call like Lane Kiffin syndrome, where if you go through and look at Lane Kiffin's career record, it's like 8-5, 10-3, 5-7, 12-1. And you're like, wait a second, what the hell can you not? And last year was really the first year that Lane Kiffin had followed up a previously good season with another good season. Now, he might argue that 10-3 and not making the college football playoff was not a good season for the Rebs, but that's neither here nor there. You look at Mike Norvell's kind of career trajectory: 8-5 at Memphis, 10-3, 8-6, 12-1. You throw out the COVID year, because I don't think the COVID year counts for anybody other than Alabama, who won the damn national championship. First year at Florida State, out of the COVID year, 5-7. The next year, 10-3. Then he goes 13-1, gets the rough end of the stick that he didn't get the ability to really compete for a national championship despite going 13-1, winning the ACC. We've hashed that out. But then after going 13-1, you're back to 2-10. So Mike Norvell's got like a mild case of Lane Kiffin syndrome. Does 2-10 turn into 10-2? I don't know. I just know that I wouldn't feel great about my standing no matter what I've accomplished in the 2 years before the 2-10, because it's a what have you done for me lately world we live in, baby. So while 13-1 and 10-3 before that was awesome, 2-10 sure sucks way worse than those other years were awesome. So you better get it together is probably the message to Mike Norvell at Florida State. Again, I don't know if it's hot. I don't know if it's warming. I can't tell the difference between those two from where I sit in the spare bedroom in my house. I just know that you can't feel real great about your standing after 2-10. I don't think you also can feel great about 5 consecutive losing seasons if you're Cal's Justin Wilcox. 5 consecutive losing seasons is not like you could explain away a 2-10, right? You can explain away literally everything that could go wrong for Florida State last year did go wrong. Got it. You can toss that one out the window. You have a losing season 5 years in a row. That's a little bit more difficult to explain away. That is more difficult to say, well, you know, what happened was 5 years in a row is a lot for that to have happened. And so I think, and I don't know that Justin Wilcox needs to win 10 games to keep his job at Cal. It might just be as much as winning 8 games. Can you go 8-4 or 8-5? That's probably good enough to keep your job. But 5 consecutive losing seasons becoming 6. Now, some of those are, 6-7 records where they lost the bowl game or whatever. Can you hold that against somebody that, hey, you got to an extra game because you got to a bowl game? Yeah, I think so. Because if all you did was went 6-6 a couple of different times, I think that's a really hard thing to justify of like, well, we would have been 500 and not had losing seasons if we hadn't made a bowl. Well, it's sort of like the bare minimum for about 85% of jobs in America is you play in a bowl game. So if you're going to use it as a like, well, we played in a bowl game 5 straight years, I'm going to use it against you if you hadn't had a winning record in 5 straight years. And that's the trend. There were some like light at the end of the tunnel moments for Cal at times throughout those 5 straight losing seasons. And yet they all kind of ended up the same way. So if 5 turns into 6, I find it somewhat improbable that Justin Wilcox is the head coach of the Bears in 2026. But we'll see what they are this season and what that all looks like come November. There are 2 more coaches. One that I think the seat is probably pretty warm, and the other is hot. Tony Elliott has an 11-23 record at Virginia in his 3 seasons, coming into season number 4. And to be fair, I think you could probably look at this situation as one of those types of situations where you look at it and go like, the fact that this guy got year 3 might be a bit of a like, hey, we believe in you, big guy. We think you can turn it around. 11-23 is tough to stomach. Now, does he have some extenuating circumstances where they had the shooting of the players in his first season? That anytime you have a tragedy like that, probably going to throw that one out. Totally get it. I'm not completely heartless to the fact that that happened, that sucks, that absolutely going to have an impact on your program, your players, your university, etc. Can't deny it. However, 2 years after the fact, you've accomplished basically the exact same thing back to back, and it was mediocrity. So I think 11-23 is your record after 3 years. Unless there is significant improvement. And I think we're talking like 6-7 wins. You're playing in a bowl game and you didn't get mollywopped by some of the biggest and best teams on your schedule. I would expect the Cavaliers to have a different coach next season because the recruiting ground in Virginia is fertile, baby. It's fertile. It's not Florida, California, Texas, Georgia, but it ain't far off from Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Ohio, etc. There is talent in Virginia. And Virginia gets somewhat, I think, the same knock that Maryland gets, right? Like, due to the talent in the area, you should be good. All you have to do is keep the talent in your state, and you will be really good. And my argument and rebuttal to that has always been, so all you've got to do is the things that nobody else has ever done before, and you'll be great. Obviously easier said than done, but the recruiting ground in Virginia, you have, if you ask college coaches, they'll tell you draw a 5-hour circle around wherever the hell we are, that's your recruiting base. Virginia has a great recruiting base. And so does Virginia Tech. And Brent Pry has not been great in his tenure at Virginia Tech. 16-21 overall, and the one winning season during his tenure. And that's because Tulane had Willie Fritz bail so he could go be the head coach at Houston before the Military Bowl in 2023. Otherwise, it's probably 3 straight losing seasons to begin his tenure at Virginia Tech. They didn't pay and boot Justin Fuente out the door for Brent Pry to come in and have a 16-21 record. And at the time of his hiring, I think there were people, he was like, Virginia Tech has hired Brent Pry, that there was a large subsection of the fan base or the college football media world who went, who? He was Penn State's defensive coordinator, and things went really pretty well for Penn State under Brent Pry, and they have not gone great at Virginia Tech. 16-21. Is it warm? Is it hot? I don't know. I don't think it's so hot that they get off to a 3-3 start or something like that. He's going to be shipped out. But I do think it's if you don't win 8 games, if you don't win 9 games, you just might not be the guy for us. I think that that's a fair and reasonable conclusion to come to, because there's some history at Virginia Tech. There's some recruiting ground at Virginia Tech, and you're playing at the ACC at potentially its lowest. The ACC is not a gauntlet by any stretch of the imagination. Are there tiers to it right now? Absolutely. And is Virginia Tech in what you probably should or shouldn't consider the right tier? I don't think so. I think Virginia Tech should be a yearly B-tier program in the ACC, and at times an A-tier program. And they are not close to that right now and haven't been under Brent Pry. And when that's the objective, get us to not maybe national championship caliber, but conference championship caliber, where we're competing with the Clemsons, the Miamis, and I think in the next couple of years, the Syracuses of the ACC, and last year, SMU. I don't know what SMU is going to be this year, but Rhett Lashley, I don't think has a damn thing to worry about. But Brent Pry does, because we brought you in to be maybe not AP top 10 ranked college football playoff expectations, but can you be 16-25 in the rankings? Can you be 9-3 with those 3 losses to a big-time Power 4 non-conference opponent in the 2 best schools in the league type situation? He hasn't gotten close to that at Virginia Tech, and I think he does have to get close to that this season to keep that train rolling in Blacksburg. I want to know your thoughts. Do you have more than 5 coaches that are on the hot seat in the ACC? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.